All right. What's going on, everybody? Bosses? Jordan here. Today I've got the lovely Miss Felicia Sadowski. What's going on, Felicia? How are you doing?
Hi, Jordan. I'm doing great. Thank you.
I have been looking forward to chatting with you on this interview for quite some time. We've been connected since, like 2019, 2020, I believe is when we first got connected in the early days of the empire that you have now built. If you want to call it that. But I'm super excited to chat with you. If you guys are here on the interview right now, type a hashtag live or hashtag replay. Today, we're going to be talking with Felicia, who's a solo esthetician. You're in Washington, correct? What specific city or location are you in?
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle, Washington. And you're a solo esthetician. You started your business in what year specifically?
2019.
2019. And the year is now 2024. And Felicia, like, it blew my mind when you told me this on our previous conversation we had. You have been able, last year, you said you did $419,000 in total revenue. Just you, solo esthetician, which is insane. If I do the math on that, 419,000 per year is like averaging $34,000 to $35,000 a month. Just you, no team, no staff, no employees. That's something you're kind of working on potentially transitioning into. And you said your best month ever recently, you hit a $50,000 month in one 30-day period, which is crazy. So I'm excited to talk about your story, your journey, kind of everything you've learned along the way. For those that are listening and paying attention right now, type hashtag live or hashtag replay. Also would love to hear who you are, what you do, where you're maybe tuning in from. If you're an esthetician, type esthetician. If you're a hairstylist, type hairstylist. Whatever it is that you do, let us know down below in the chat. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things with Felicia, which is how when we first met Felicia in 2019, what were you doing just dollar-wise on average when we first connected back in 2019?
I think it was about 3K.
3K. So starting your business, you were averaging about $3,000 a month. And in a matter of less than, 3, 4, 5 years, you've been able to get to 10,000 a month, to 20,000 a month, to 30,000 a month, to 40,000 a month, to all the way up to 50,000 a month plus, and have been able to create amazing impact with your clients, amazing impact in your community. And I know you've been creating amazing impact with you personally and your family. You have a son at home as well. How old is your son now?
He just turned 18.
18-year-old son. So when we first met back in 2019, he was what? That was like 5 years ago. So how old was he then? Like 13?
Yeah.
12, 13? So able to be a super mom and manage yourself, manage the teenage years of your son, and still able to build a badass business. I'm excited to dive into all of it. So Felicia, for those that are maybe here who don't know who you are, do you want to maybe share a little bit about who you are, what you do, why you're here?
Yeah. My name's Felicia. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I'm a master esthetician, got my license in 2016, and then went back and got my master's in 2017.
Love it. So let's walk through the early phases to now. And we got a ton of people firing in the chat. We got some estheticians here, some PMU artists. I know, Felicia, you focus mainly on like skincare, microneedling, and most importantly right now, like laser hair removal and stuff as well, correct?
That's correct.
Love it. So let's start from the beginning. Walk me through, Felicia, like what made you want to get into the industry in the first place? Like why become an esthetician?
I just came to a point in my life where I had a calling on the heart. Didn't even know what an esthetician was. I was 29 years old, came, to this point in my life where I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Always doing odds and ends jobs. And, I just had a calling on the heart. I didn't even know what an esthetician was.
That's awesome. So how did you learn about it, and what got you kind of interested in pursuing that path?
There was, I had met an esthetician, still wasn't really familiar with like exactly what she what she did or anything, but I think that's kind of where the seed got planted. And yeah, I just went and followed through with it. I went and toured a school and just rolled with it from there.
That's awesome. And that was back in what year specifically? Was that,
Uh, it was probably
you said you were 29,
2015.
2015?
Mm-hmm.
So 2015, pursued the aesthetics path, not knowing what that even meant back then. And you said it was like a friend or like a
Yeah.
family friend of yours that
Yeah.
introduced you? Okay, awesome. And then you decided to go to school. And then what happened from there? Like, when did you officially like start your business? Did you work for someone else first? Like, what was the first step to getting started?
Yeah, so I went out, put a bunch of applications in. I got a job like a month after getting my license, working at a really bougie spa for a long time. And I was there for, I think like 3 or 4 years. And I went back and got my master aesthetic license, about after a year of being there. But I stayed there for so long because I had built up a clientele and I was comfortable and I was scared. And then I had met a woman who owned her own business. And, I had the opportunity of, starting my own business there, but I was always too scared, just being a single mom, like having nothing to really fall back on.
Mm.
And honestly, I just didn't know that like somebody like me could even own their own business. And yeah, so I was just really scared to even take that step.
Mm.
Um, I ended up getting fired at my job, and that was the universe pushing me out to start my own business. And at that point, I was like, I had no idea what it was going to look like, but I had to make it work. I had that
Yeah.
desperation, like, I have to make this work, whatever that looks like.
That's awesome. So that's quite an interesting start to the journey. You started when you were 29, kind of not completely sure like what path you were going down, but like you knew. Did you always kind of vision yourself like becoming a business owner? Was that something that like, were
No,
you just looking to find a career opportunity? Like, what was,
just
I
a
guess,
career opportunity. I remember this girl in school she owned her own business and she was saying like I could do it too. And I could just remember thinking like, yeah, right,
that's crazy. Considering now, fast forward not that long later, less than 10 years from first learning what an esthetician was, to being, I mean, hitting numbers that, I mean, some teams and staffs don't do with like 10 plus people that I talk to, which is insane. So that's a crazy transition. Um, but you spent your first early years working at a spa. What was the dynamic there? Was it a good environment? Did you enjoy working there? How was those first few years?
Uh, I mean, it was okay. I was solely commission, so that always kind of like scared me because I didn't
Mm.
actually have an hourly rate. But after like 2 years of being there, I was finally able to just kind of like relax and be like, oh, okay, I am making more than a minimum wage or whatever. So I was making, way more off of commission. Um, so it was really scary in the beginning,
Yeah,
just being like solely commission. I didn't know
I can
anything
imagine.
about that in that industry, like that it was like that.
And at this time, you're also a single mom. Your son in 2015, how old was he then? That was like 10 years ago. So he was probably like less than 10 years old.
Yeah, what, 8 years old?
So managing that and getting first introduced to commission, that probably, I would assume, gets you kind of thinking, almost as a business owner in a commission-based role, like how money can be generated, how you can serve your clients at the highest level. What were some things maybe you learned like through those first few years kind of working as a commission-based team member?
Yeah, I mean, it being commission based, made me definitely like upgrade like facials and stuff like that so that way I can make more. It was always like pushing me to, sell more, essentially. So that was definitely a good introduction there and
Yeah,
learning.
that's awesome. You said you got fired from this position. If you don't mind me asking, like what happened? Was it like just mutual transition? Was it just not a good fit? Like what was kind of the
Uh,
dynamic?
they ended up getting new owners, and I ended up doing, one of my clients was a friend at home, and she paid me through Venmo, and I guess that's a big no-no. Someone told on me, and I got fired for it.
Interesting learning experience, but like you said, kind of silver lining to it,
Yeah,
helped you kind of ignite your start to your own business from there, right?
it definitely was. I needed that because to me it felt like I was holding on to this rotting log that I would never grow
Mm.
in where I was at, but I was too scared to leave.
Mm. I can totally relate to that. I would love to hear down below in the comments. By the way, if you guys are here, type a hashtag live, hashtag replay. Let us know where you're located, what services you offer. If you guys are a solo professional on your own right now, type solo. If you're an owner, type owner. And if you work for someone else, let us know that as well, because I think it's very interesting to hear, Felicia's journey and how she transitioned to business ownership. Maybe wasn't something that you had always thought of. All along, it was something that kind of naturally and organically transitioned for you.
Yes.
So walk me through those steps. Like you exit from this location. It sounds like it was something you already kind of knew was going to have limits and caps to your potential working there, regardless of how things kind of panned out, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And
And then where I went, I was subletting out of a room, which really kind of capped me as well, because I
mm,
was still under someone else's thumb and stuff. But again, I stayed there for a really long time and built myself up. Um, and it was just a stepping stone.
mhm.
And um, and again, here I was like holding on to this tiny little space for so long. And I ended up getting, pushed out of that place and got my own space where,
That's awesome.
yeah. And each time I get pushed, it's always for the better. And I always end up growing and I always end up making more money. So,
I love that. I can relate to that too. I think a lot of us sometimes the most painful moments in our lives can sometimes lead to the most, highest level opportunities, right? Like, as long as you pursue them, right? And you don't like quit, you don't give up, you keep pushing through. Like, usually sometimes those hard times can lead to potentially the next, level up for ourselves, right? So I love that. What year did you like transition to owning your own space? You mentioned
just
2015 first started, 3 to 4 years at the spa, and then transition out. So what year did you actually like go all in on your own business?
are you talking about after I got fired from the job in
Yeah, like
2019?
the transition after that to getting your own space.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was literally just this last June. So 4 years.
Got it. So 4 years getting into your own space. And then um, when you first got started with your own business, did you just booth rental? Did you rent a salon suite, location, studio?
Just subletted a room out of another clinic.
Okay. And then that was, what year was that specifically when you
2000
first signed that lease?
2019.
2019. And walk me through like when you first started that location, what was kind of going through your head and what were you focused on? Like now that like all my chips are on me and renting and maximizing this location, like what were you kind of going through at that time?
I'll tell you what, Jordan, I was really going through it. It was all I could think about. I was like, well, I guess we're doing this now. I went and I had some money saved up. So I went and put down, a month's worth of rent and deposit. And I said, I guess we're doing this. But I can just remember like that first, few months, all I can think about was like, am I going to make enough? Like, is this going to
Mm.
work? It was a really, really hard time for me. So I really had that desperation to make this work. And I was like, okay, it's just me. Like, I have to make this work. I got to support me and my son. And I did whatever it took. And then that's where I found you and Katie.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that was kind of where, we've had plenty of conversations, but I didn't know that was the transition you were kind of going through. Like, you just had moved to this new space, went all in on yourself. Like, you're a single mom providing for you and your son at the time. And like, you've got to make this work, right? A lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of like, I've got to do whatever it takes to provide for me and my family, right? And so where were you able to, before we kind of first met, like where was the business doing dollar wise? You said about like 3,000 a month or so. You're able to get
Yeah.
a good client
Yep.
base established.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it started probably with maybe 10 clients, if that, you know.
okay,
Yeah, so about $3,000 a month. I knew I needed marketing. I had no clue. And I found, you and Katie, and you guys taught me a lot. And that's when my business really started to grow. And I had a lot of motivation at that point. So I was willing to do like whatever it took.
I love that. So you were able to, how did you get your first 10 clients like to start? Was it like connections that you had, previous clients, or like what were you doing before we started kind of getting a plan
Uh,
together?
well, they were just people who had followed me from, what I had built up at the other spa.
Okay. So that was definitely in the infancy, like early days. Like you had just the current connections you had that got you your first like 5 to 10 plus clients doing about 2 to 3,000 a month on average. And then you realize at that point in time, like I need to focus on marketing. I need to get a good plan together and I've got to make this work. Um,
Mhm.
how did you get connected like with us back in 2019? Like what made you want to reach out?
Well, I saw you guys in I think it was an esthetician group, a Facebook group, and you guys just spoke right to me, definitely it was like, I can't even remember, but, asking those questions that, we're supposed to do, like, asking our own clients, like, I learned all of that from you guys. But yeah, you guys were asking the right questions and it was exactly what I needed. So I pulled the trigger and got a part of the program, and I got so much more than marketing, because you guys helped coach me on how to, run a business essentially, like how to talk to clients, how to retain clients, so much more than marketing. Like Katie taught me how to post pictures, I didn't know that kind of stuff. And, as simple as like making sure your pictures are on the right side. I didn't know those things. Jordan, you taught me to not focus on my website. Let's focus on getting clients in the door, right? Don't focus on I would focus all on the wrong things. My phone number, the colors, all of those things, and you just helped me switch my mindset. Like, we don't need to worry about those things. Let's just focus on getting clients in the door. And that's what I did.
Love that.
I was
That's
posting
awesome.
pictures regularly.
That's great. So how long did it take to hit your first $10,000 a month? If you look back, starting at 2019.
Probably 5 months or 6 months, maybe, uh, or maybe it was a year. Um, I just know that once I started working with you guys, it was like 5,000, and then eventually I made it up to 10K.
That's
But I just
awesome.
remember I had a big jump from like 3K to like 5K. And then, I think it took me a little while to get to 10K, but I got there. But
That's awesome.
I don't think it took that long though.
That's great. Well, what I really want to do to maximize our time, Felicia, if it's cool with you, I would love to talk about kind of what you focused on and like what really helped you go from like, that basically 0 to 10,000 a month. What were the main things that you focused on specifically to build that clientele, get yourself to hitting that 6-figure level? And then maybe we can talk about 10 to 25, 25 to 50, and then kind of talk about what your plans are next. If you guys right now are listening in, I see a ton of comments, you guys engaging with us. Let us know what your kind of revenue goal is right now for your business. Is it 10K, 25K, 50K, 100K per month? What we're going to talk about right now, I'm going to drop it in the chat, is 10K per month. If you're looking to hit your first or next 10K per month, drop 10K down below in the chat. If you guys stay to the end, we'll also make sure you guys get the replay, and then I'll work with Felicia. Felicia, if it's cool with you, we can maybe put together a little cheat sheet or some notes, maybe even put together a class together to dive deeper into a lot of the things that you've applied. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely.
I love it. So let's talk about kind of 0 to 10K. So you realized and identified that like the number one thing I need to focus on is not like branding, logo, website, but like the things that actually directly correlate to getting clients, getting butts and seats, as we like to say, right? So
Yep.
what were the main things you did to build that first like $10,000 clientele? Like what were the main things that helped you get there?
I would say model calls worked fantastic for me. Posting regularly on social media. I think those are the two like main things right there. Like I found you guys always talk about finding like what works for you, and that's what was working for me. I would also, do the messaging script and, like starting a bunch of conversations as well.
Awesome. So model calls, I'm interested to dive deeper into that because I think there's a lot of people who have a misconception on what that means. I think a lot of people think model, they think like, how do you make money doing that? How does that make sense? Like, I don't want to discount or offer my stuff for free. I know that you and I both know that that's not what a model call objective really is. So I'm excited to dive into that. And then you said posting consistently. Where were you posting specifically? Is this like personal profile, Instagram, Facebook groups? Where are you?
Personal profile, Facebook.
Okay. So we'll dive into that. And then also like starting like conversations and building connections and relationships in your community. You said is the main things, like 0 to 10K. If you had to, and for those that don't know, I talked to Felicia right before we hopped on, and I was like, when we get into the tactics, imagine Felicia, you're talking to Felicia back in 5 years ago, 2019. What would you tell yourself? So that's what we're going to dive into. So Felicia, if you were talking to yourself back at, let's say you're starting from scratch, ground zero, trying to hit your first 10K, walk me through like this model call strategy that you just mentioned. Like, what does that look like? What did you focus on specifically?
So I focused on things that, wasn't a huge, cost, out of my pocket. When I was trying to get more people in for the laser hair removal, that was fantastic. With the laser hair removal, it's a little bit easier because people are going to need more than one treatment. So that one was a little bit easier to, be like, hey, it's 50% off your first treatment, and then I was able to sell them on, a package. I would also do facial model calls. And, in the beginning, it felt like, yes, I was discounting myself a lot, but I also felt like that's what I needed to do to actually get the people in. Um, and eventually, like, I was able to grow, and once I continue to grow is when I don't need to and feel like I need to discount as much.
That makes sense. So because I think a lot of people kind of hit a crossroads here where let's just, there's a lot of people who I think may even be watching right now who are doing less than 10,000 a month, and they're very concerned about like in the door offers, discounts, model calls, things like that as a way to build their clientele. But I think what you're kind of mentioning is like, I didn't have a clientele and I knew I needed to build a clientele. And so I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to get people in the door, to build a relationship, get them in the door for that first visit, and then figure out how I could kind of customize a long-term plan with them from there. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I think that's a huge point. Let's type that in the chat real quick for everyone. An in the door offer. I think if you're starting from scratch or looking to make your first or next 10,000 per month, I think getting clear on like, what can I do to just get people in the door and have like a no-brainer offer to allow them to do that, I think is very important. And I think you would agree with that as well, considering it's started out from 0 to 10,000, 25,000, hitting a top of 50,000 per month on those foundations, which is amazing. But you notice that like if I could get someone in the door, that even if I did, a crazy introductory offer, that I could then kind of prescribe them maybe a long-term plan, a package, a series of treatments from there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's awesome. So what were the main services that you focused on in the beginning to build the first 10K per month clientele? Was it laser hair removal then? Was it microneedling, facials? Like what were the main services you focused on?
I would say the main services was microneedling. Again, another easy one to be able to sell packages on, right? Because we need at least 3 for optimal results. And laser hair removal, again, need more for optimal results. And facials. I feel like just like the basic facials was probably a little bit more to get that returning clientele every single month. But even with a regular facial, I can convert them to like microneedling most likely.
Got it. I'm going to type that in the chat for everyone. So the core, because we already have some questions kind of coming through on what you did, how you did it, what services you focused on. I heard facials, laser hair removal, and then microneedling, which is great.
But also doing packages for facials is fantastic too. Like we can get them in for just one facial and be like, hey, if you buy 3, you can get 1 free, right? Most people are going to do that. And then that's a great way to, because I think you guys even say this, if they come in at least 3 times consistently, they're most likely to stay with you.
Absolutely. I remember us having those discussions one-to-one vividly back then too. So that's awesome. I would love to hear, for everyone who's here, we are going to answer some questions towards the end of today. So if you have questions for Felicia on how she built her clientele or how she's building or running or managing her business as a solo esthetician to 10, 25, best month ever, 50,000 per month. I think we said your average last year, you hit 419 in total revenue, averaging about 30 to 35K per month. If you have questions for Felicia, drop those in the comments and we'll make sure to get those answered here. So walk me through pretending as if I know nothing, or you're talking to your former self, Felicia. Like when you say model calls, making these posts on your personal profile and starting conversations to navigate towards that first consultation, like what is your approach specifically? If you had to explain it in layman's terms, kind of step by step, like what's the strategy?
A lot of times I would post my work and I would get comments that way. And when I would get a comment, then I can get them into Messenger and be able to have my intro message. Hey, this is Felicia. I'm a master esthetician in Seattle and I'm, trying to build my business and I have a great introductory rate, that sort of thing. And a lot of times just opening up that conversation, I would be able to get people in the door that way. So I found that the more conversations I would have, it was kind of more of a numbers game, the more people I can get in.
So really focusing on like, no matter what medium it is to kind of get those first consultations booked, just getting someone in the door.
Yep.
You're posting work, maybe like before and afters. Is that kind of when you say
Yeah,
posting
before and
pictures of your work?
afters, little videos of me doing facials, lash lifts, stuff like that.
So simple content, just documenting what you're doing for your clients.
Yep.
Um, Photos and videos. Is there anything that worked better than the others, or like anything that worked the best for you as far as posting content?
Mm, videos. I think videos
Videos.
were little, just like little clips of me doing the service.
Okay. And
And
how did you go about doing that? Like, did you have a specific strategy that you would try to ask your clients if they'd be okay if you took a video? Did you have like a tripod set up? Like, what was this? What did you end
yeah,
up doing?
yeah, just ring light, iPhone, propped up on the ring light. And a lot of that would be like in with my model calls as well. Like I
Mm,
can use that, like, hey, I'll give you a discounted price if I can use it, for content. And yeah, so that was also a great way, like for model calls, like, hey, it's going to be discounted, but, I need content.
love it. And when you had these offers, the whole goal was to get them in for the consultation. Sometimes for their first visit, you would do like half off your first treatment, and prescribe them a long-term plan. You also mentioned you had some stuff that was like buy three, get one free. Like you kind of, once they were in, you then prescribe them what they really need. But the whole goal of like, I would assume like a model call or an introductory offer was just so that they would be open to that first visit, correct?
Yeah, get them in the door, to build that relationship with them.
Love it. And how did you do the model calls? Like, how did you post about them, get people interested in them? Was it like a percentage off their first visit or service to start? Or like, how did you frame that so that there was good expectations and they were willing to pay?
A lot of times, I'm not sure if I would actually put the price on there, but we would go over it in the message, because everybody's like, "Oh, what's the price?" And a lot of times people think model call is free. And so, I would let them know like in the message, like how much it would be, just so that way they're like, "Oh, it's not free." Sometimes you lose people because it's not free, but it's also such a good deal, a lot of people will come in. Um, so yeah.
What did you usually charge for the first visit if it was like a model or an introductory rate offer?
So if it was, like laser hair removal, it would be like 50% off of a single treatment. So that
Okay.
could be anywhere from like $50 to $150, somewhere around there. With the facials and stuff like that, probably around $100.
Okay. And if you were to like lose everything, have to start from scratch, like would you use that same strategy again? Let's say if like Felicia, you move to a brand new city or location, like have to rebuild completely from scratch, like no connections, no like former
Oh,
clientele, like
hands down.
okay.
I,
So
there's
you
there's some
still,
there's something about a model call that just grabs people.
yeah. I think that's important. Like, and this is coming from everyone can run their business their own way, but I think like coming from someone, if for anyone who's watching right now who's done 10,000, 25,000, 40,000, $50,000 per month as a solo esthetician, which is more than what some entire teams and staffs do. I think that's a very important note, to kind of take note of is like, despite I think the misconceptions of providing value first and getting someone open to that first introductory interaction with you, being willing to give in return for building that relationship, I think is huge, right? And I think a lot of people, I have found, at least, I don't know about you, Felicia, and your experience of kind of seeing other people try to grow their businesses, but I think a lot of people try to, overcomplicate, or sometimes like it almost comes across as greedy that they're not willing to give in advance or provide value first to just build that relationship with the client. What would you advise for someone who has, like, I guess they're unsure whether I want to, do a model call, or, provide a upfront value or discount upfront to get a client in the door? What would you kind of share for someone who's like on the fence about doing something like that?
I mean, honestly, it depends on how much they need it. You know what I mean? Like if you need clients, um, and like for me, it was like I was willing to do whatever it took. Even just trying it, like just try it. If you don't like it, you don't
Yeah.
have to keep doing it, but just find something that works for you. And the model calls worked fantastic for me. And just posting on my social media. Um, I would do it
Love
again
it.
in a heartbeat. It worked great.
I think that's awesome. So the main factors that you mentioned is like, I'm posting work on my personal profile. Are you also doing us on your business page or in like Facebook groups or anything? Or um, is it mainly through just your personal profile specifically? Or
It's mostly my personal Facebook profile. I mean, that's where I'd get most of my clients. And that's what you've taught us anyways. Like, I didn't really get a whole lot from Instagram. Sure, I post there, but I don't get the interaction that I do from Facebook, like I do from my personal profile. Posting just lets people know that, hey, I'm an esthetician. And eventually, maybe one day also, like they're going to know I'm going to reach out to Felicia because I know she does skin. And
right.
they have.
And how did you build up, I guess, your following or engagement on your personal profile initially to start getting some traction there?
Uh, just adding friends, people you may know, mostly, mostly women. And, like, I don't want to completely discriminate against the guys as well, because like you said, maybe they might have wives that need services, which I've actually had men want to get, treatments for their wives. So, there's that too. But I am a little bit more selective on the men. But I do add a lot of friends, even if I don't know, it's like I do have a lot of people on there that I don't know, right?
Yeah,
But if I'm looking at it as a business, you know, and I want people to know that I'm an esthetician, and they'll reach out to me if they, want some services. And that's if I'm posting regularly. Um, when I post regularly, like I had more people wanting treatments done.
yeah. So I assume you're adding these friends from local like groups and communities that you're in, and like,
Yeah, I that's
building
it.
your profile, in your area, obviously.
Yep, exactly.
Um, so finding local communities on Facebook, engaging in those communities, and like adding friends, making posts, like connecting with the community while you build up your personal profile. And then from there, starting to post regularly about like just documenting what you're already doing, like before and afters, photos, videos of treatments and transformations that you're creating for your clients. And then you mentioned just generating comments from those posts, and then starting conversations from those people who
Yeah,
are reaching out to you with the
that's
simple
exactly.
introduction.
Mhm.
Sorry, go
And
ahead.
I would even hop into Facebook groups, which they can get a little tricky, right? Because you can't just post a model call in there. But if you go into a Facebook group, do the like let's get connected, start building connections that way, and make friends and get them on my personal profile. So
Mm,
that way, when I post a model call, like now I have that connection out of that group, and I can post whatever I want on my profile. I'm not
love it.
limited on what to do in a Facebook group.
I think that's awesome. If y'all want to maybe hear or see more of what Felicia's referring to behind the scenes, on how she built up her profile, just type Facebook or FB down below in the chat. If it's cool with you, Felicia, maybe we can put together like just here's some of the best posts that work for you, ways that you kind of got connected so you could build up that personal profile in your following. And then from there, like how you kind of kept up with it. Did you kind of shoot for a specific number of posts, like per day, per week? How did you kind of manage your schedule, like to make sure that you were able to do that and take care of your son at home and manage the business, your clients? Like
I
what
would
helped you stay
say,
consistent?
yeah, that, I mean, consistency is key, right? I would say at least, you know, once to 2 times a week, I would try to post, you know, something.
Okay. So at least a couple times a week. And that was more than enough to start getting a steady flow of like clients in the door, conversations being started,
Yep,
and relationships being built, right? Love it.
exactly.
So covered a ton there in terms of 0 to 10K. Mainly the biggest thing I took away from that is like just being willing to provide value first and focusing on building relationships and introducing yourself, like starting conversations with people. And if they're open to a conversation or a consultation, great. If not, no harm, no foul, right? At least you're building relationships, making connections, right?
Yep.
Um, was there any like obstacles or I don't know, skepticism or uncertainty that you had to overcome when kind of first getting that wheel turning for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the messaging of like other people was definitely like really weird, you know, and it was hard to stay consistent on that.
Yeah,
And that was probably like the hardest thing for me to get through, you know, and I think that's actually probably a lot of people's, you know, getting through that part, right?
yeah,
But I think that just looking at as like I'm trying to just build like true, you know, connections with people and have a different mindset versus like I'm just trying to sell them on something, really helps.
love that. So focusing on building the relationship first and like also just managing your own expectations, your own mindset. Like, you know, obviously meeting new people, starting conversations, putting yourself out there, like making content, like it is an uncomfortable state if you've never done it before, right? But it sounds like for you, like you knew you needed to support yourself, support your family, you wanted to serve your clients. And so, you know, willing to do what it takes to step out of the comfort zone, you know, be consistent is something that you were willing to do. And I think at least from my experience, I find that a lot of people are just sometimes just they know what they need to do, but they're struggling to maybe just take that first step or prioritize the things that are important to them to stay consistent. What would you advise or recommend to people who are struggling with like getting out of their comfort zone, making those connections, posting that content, or maintaining that consistency in the early phases?
Um, I think that, you know, just kind of taking stop worrying about what other people think, right? Um, because that could be a thing like, oh, you know, people are gonna like think like posting your work on social media, you know, like for me, when I see another person like posting their work, I'm like hell yeah, you know. And so like I think about that for myself. It's like, you know what, like I got to get out there somehow, and the people that really want to support me, like they're going to root for me and be like, hell yeah, look at her trying to get her business out there and, you know, make a name for herself. Like I think just kind of thinking about that, you know, like I'm trying to make a name for myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the number one thing I mean, I have interviewed every single week, like for the past 5 years, like people like yourself who are like blowing through the expectations of what I think most people think is possible in the industry, like hitting 10, 25, 50, 100 grand a month. And the number one thing that I think that I've noticed from talking to people like you is just the willingness to do the things that most people are not willing to do, which is the separator between success and failure. And I think like if you're not where you want to be in your business or your life right now, I think it's time to identify what the real root problem is. It's probably not your location, it's probably not your area, it's probably not all those things that we kind of point outward. It may just be, hey, I need to get myself out there. I need to build more relationships. Like I need to build a name for myself, like you just mentioned, right? And so like willing to do that, I think is definitely step one. Um, Anything else that you feel is important, like from you or for anyone who may be watching who's looking to go from 0 to their first or next 10,000 per month? Like, what was important to focus on in that journey?
I think just the butts and seats is the most important part. It really is.
Focusing on clients and butts and seats.
Yeah.
So that's 0 to 10 for you. What got you from 10 to 25K per month as a solo? Like what was the main things you focused on, and maybe how long did it take to get to that next level?
So, that was a slow crawl because I remember just kind of staying around the 15 to 18K mark. Um, and during this time, I'm still kind of like focusing on those strategies, all while trying to build my Google My Business and getting reviews from people. Um, Utilizing, like, in the beginning, the like, raffle strategies, like, even today, like, I offer, like, a little incentive to get, like, a review because Google reviews at this point is what's driving my business today. So, also, like, getting those reviews in the beginning, um, has slowly helped me build to where I'm at today.
So after building and establishing the clientele, focusing on like reviews, referrals, obviously retention
Yes.
too, right? Because you're also making sure that the people who have come in for these early visits, like they have, had a consultation with you, you have like them on some form of plan, whether it's like pay as you go or let's get you booked for a series of treatments or whatnot based on what their needs are. But now starting to build the brand around the clientele that you've established. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Referrals is a
Love
big
it.
one as well.
That's awesome. How did you go about doing that? Like when you started to get the butts and seats, clients started to be booked, you're at 10K looking to get to 25, like what did your workflow look like, or the things that you really paid the most attention to?
So I would just, be asking for reviews again, handing out little referral cards, like $20 off for you, $20 off for a friend. Um, and eventually, that stuff started to pop off, still focusing on like posting my work as well. Um, and yeah, eventually just kind of getting it a little bit more automated, um, which I think when I hit about 25K is when I ended up getting a virtual assistant.
Okay.
So that
So,
was also help.
so it sounds like I want to talk about that for sure. But once you kind of cracked the ability to get new clients in the door, value first, like getting them in for that first consult, it was about doing that consistently, posting content, starting conversations, continuing to ignite and nurture relationships to get people in the door. And then as people are coming in, then we're focused on like kind of maximizing those opportunities or the people that are in front of you through retention, reviews, referrals. You mentioned you had some like referral kind of incentives that you had, so like $25 off for them and the person they referred. Is that correct?
Yep, that's
Love
right.
it. And then continuously staying consistent with posting content still on your personal profile, correct?
Yep.
Love it. And then that anything else you did to get to the 25K per month mark, or was it just more of those things and maximizing those opportunities?
I think that I'm trying to think if I raised my prices at that point. Because I know I noticed the biggest jumps is where I raised my prices. Um, I don't think I may have, like, raised it a tiny bit, but I don't think I really, like, raised my prices until I hit, like, 25K, I wanna say. It was when, I went to the RBB live event, and one of the speakers there was talking about raising your prices, and he was like, "Do it right now." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it right now."
I love it. And how did you go about raising your prices? I think a lot of people sometimes know they need to work on doing that. How did you go about doing it?
So one thing I heard was that it's how you feel, and it totally is because, like, I'd always be like, "Oh, nobody's going to pay for that," right? But as I gained more confidence in myself, as I gained more experience, as I got, grown more, like I had the space to be able to like, I'm raising my prices. I know it's worth it, and being able to like stick to that. And so that's where I think like the most growth has been for me.
I love it. So what was your price before and what did you raise it to?
So, my microneedling, again, I'm in Seattle, so it's really expensive here. Microneedling was 250, went to 350. Facials was probably around, um, one, 125, something like that. And I went up to 160, you know, um, 200 for a dermaplane, laser hair removal packages, those have been, really low, like, 550 for a package of 6 of bikini. I have that now at, 1,000, and I've done like two price increases, um, to get to that level.
So those are some pretty big bumps. Like going from like 250 to 350, 125 to like 150 or 175. Did
Yep.
you like how did you go about doing that specifically? Like, did you start with new clients? Did you transfer existing clients and let them know about it? How did you, or did you just say, hey, this is the new pricing and just start there?
I just did it. I just bumped the prices
Yeah.
up. I didn't even say anything. I just did it.
Did you have any issues with that? Like with,
No.
um, that's awesome. I think a lot of people definitely have a lot of internal blocks that I've found hold them back from raising those prices. And I think usually, like your case, most people who get out of their own way and just make the commitment, like I'm going to start charging what I'm worth, I'm going to value myself more, like they just draw the line of sand in the sand and do it. Usually that all those things that a lot of people are fearful of or scared of, like is never an actual truth. It's something that they've imagined in their head, right? So
It's
like you
all in
didn't
our
have any,
heads. It's
yeah.
always you know, trust me, I go through it too. I'm thinking about it, like maybe my facials may not have jumped up that much. It might have been like 150, and then I went up to like, I bumped it up like $10. Um, so wasn't that big of a deal.
That's awesome. Um, so raising from 10 to 25, maximizing client value, reviews, referrals, retention, raising our prices, implementing referral incentives, like the $25 off for the person who refers, and then the referral, continually posting content in your work, continuing to work on those organic marketing strategies. Have you done any advertising at this point, or is it still mainly organic?
Uh, I found that I had, the most luck with just organic. I did do, like the paid ads on Facebook very briefly in the beginning, but it is a lot to keep up on as a solo. But I found, just great, results just from the organic, and that was free.
Yeah, that's huge. I think like, yeah, that's a huge note. I think everyone type organic down below in the chat. I think a lot of people like are hoping and praying that like, I don't know, paid advertising, funnels, like automation, all that stuff is going to be the golden nugget or, magical fairy dust that like catapults them to the next level. But for you in record time, like getting from 0 to 10 to 25K in this phase is mainly focused like on organic.
Yeah,
Um,
I,
and do,
I did. You're right, though. I did do some Facebook ads early in the beginning with microneedling, and that was a little bit of a driving force. I will say, you guys helped me with some Facebook ads, but what I will say about that is that it's very technical. You know, you have to like be calling these people like right away. Again, you know, I feel like it's great in the beginning, and if you have that drive and able to like keep up with all of that. But ultimately, like I found that, you know, I got away from those Facebook ads and just focused on the organic, and it worked amazing for me.
Love that. So it was like a supplement to organic when you did it.
Exactly.
That's great. So focusing, like, I think what's awesome here, guys, is like for Felicia, like, because she has, in my opinion, you have a strong motivation, a strong reason why, like, looking to support you, support your son, like, you're a single mom making this all work. Like, you're willing to do whatever it takes to make the business work, and willing to put forth the time, the energy, the effort to do the things that most people are not willing to do. I think that's a huge learning moment and lesson for anyone who may be watching, no matter what services you offer, where you're located, like whatever the crap you may be going through right now. I think if you can, you know, draw that line in the sand and say, hey, I'm not satisfied with the results I'm getting out of life in business right now. Like, I'm ready and willing to make a change. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Like, you'll unlock, I think, a lot of the success that you're looking for just on the other side of maybe doing versus not doing the things that are so simple to do, but yet so simple not to do, that I think can lead to two completely different outcomes, right? Because, like, I mean, if you never said, hey, I'm going to start posting content, or hey, I'm not going to starting these conversations, or like, I'm not willing to, you know, do what I can to provide value first to get clients in the door, you couldn't guarantee that you're going to be able to replicate the same results if you had to do it all over again, right? So, like, I hope, and if you guys are getting some value from what Felicia is sharing, like, my biggest takeaway so far is that all this stuff is really simple, right? Like, one thing we always say is simple scales, fancy fails. We can type that in the chat. Simple scales, fancy fails. Like, a lot of this stuff that you were doing, Felicia, was like, I mean, would you say it was that complicated or like difficult to do?
No, it wasn't that difficult to do. It's mostly just getting out
Actually
of
doing it.
my own way.
I love it. And that got you, I mean, from 2019, when did you hit your first like $25,000 month? Do you know, like, time period or date?
Probably a couple years ago. You know, because I just would kind of stay kind of steady. You know, I've just grown really slow each time. You know, every year I can tell I'm just growing a little bit. So it had been a couple years ago.
That's awesome.
And then I
So
just kind of
20,
stayed there for a while.
yeah. Well, at a certain point, and that's what we've talked about too, like, you're a solo professional doing this. So, like, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, when you hit like a $50,000 month, like, what's your expense? Like, do you have much overhead or expense because it's just you?
Uh, I mean, I guess you're right for like that amount of money. No, I mean, I'm probably staying around the 10K mark, you know, for expenses and payroll and everything. Maybe a
So,
little
like,
bit more.
make 50, keep 40. That doesn't sound too bad, right? I want everyone who's watching, like, imagine right now, like, you're taking home 10,000, 25,000, in your case, Felicia, like $30,000, you know, per month in some months. Like, that's where I think a lot of people dream and strive for, but sometimes not focusing on the numbers that actually move the needle, or the actions that actually would get them there, is the only thing that holds most people back. So I appreciate you sharing all this. And I think you say it was like slow and steady, but like, in less than 5 years, you've been able to accomplish what some people don't accomplish in a lifetime. And I think that's huge, right? Like, I know personally, we talk to salon spa owners every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year. I know people have been in the industry for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, some longer than that, who still are stuck, you know, at either the 0 to 10 or 10 to 25, or haven't been able to quite get to that 50K per month mark. And that's just in revenue, not even just take home. So I think that's awesome. You've been able to do that. I would love to hear for everyone who's watching right now, what is your income goal? Maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, like what would you love to be taking home right now in your business? Is it 10K, 25K, 50K? Let us know down below in the comments. And we're about to dive deeper into this as well. But Felicia, you said a couple years ago, you hit the 25K. After 0 to 10, we talked about that. Then we just talked about 25. If it was a couple years ago, that probably would have been what, like 2022, you think?
Yeah.
So 2019, 21, or 20, 21, 22, like less than 3 years able to get from 0 to 25K per month. Pretty awesome. What got you from 25 to 50K per month?
Again, Google presence, and raising my prices, and going off into my own location.
So Google presence, raising prices, and then you moved to a new location.
Yep.
And why did you move to this new location? Was it a bigger space, better area? Like what was
I mean,
kind of
I
the thought process?
tried to stay as close as where I was because that's where I was building my clientele. So I literally only moved a half a mile away. But yes, a bigger space. I outgrew my space.
Okay, great. I think that's a huge lesson in itself. Is like, I think a lot of people sometimes try to jump to the perfect location, the big location and stuff first. You naturally like started small. How big was the square footage of the initial location?
Like a 10 by 8.
10 by 8. So small
Room.
little space, but we maxed that space out to like 25K plus per month. And then you outgrew the space. So then we get to a bigger space, right? So that's awesome. And you said continually just working on doing the same things you were doing, continuing to raise prices. And then you mentioned your Google presence. How did you work on growing that? And what did you do specifically to expand?
Mostly just asking people for reviews, especially since I just found that it was like a really huge driving force of business for me. And it's free. It's like almost the best, thing you can do. So definitely like focus on that Google presence. Like, people are choosing me like in the area because of my Google reviews. But yeah, just asking people for reviews. I'd even do like little things like, hey, for a review, I'll give you this, skincare product thing, just sometimes just kind of like push some, and sometimes it kind of feels like a game. It's like, ooh, I want to get 80 and I just need one more. I'm like, hey, can you give me a Google review? Just so I can reach 80 Google reviews.
Yeah.
But I started getting so busy that I almost didn't feel like I could keep up with the work. And so my logical thought process was like, well, I'm going to raise my prices,
Yeah.
maybe that'll slow it down a little bit. And then like, the people that are willing to pay for that, will be like more quality, like, okay, it'll be worth it, and it really hasn't slowed down too much, even from just jumping it up.
Yeah. That's crazy, because I think that's what holds a lot of people back from raising prices. Or you also implemented packaging and stuff as well, like series of treatments, packages for the long-term transformation. I think a lot of people are just operating a lot of fear. If I raise my prices, I'm going to lose clients. I'm going to something bad is going to happen. Throughout your entire journey from 0 to 50K plus, have you ever had that experience where you've had an issue with losing clients, or any of those fears that maybe you would think would go into that? Have you struggled with any of those?
I don't think I've really experienced that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that I just don't see anymore that just kind of fall off. But ultimately, like my regulars and stuff have been, seeing me consistently and like getting new people in, and they had no idea what my prices were before, you know.
Mm.
Um, but I think just like also just kind of knowing the value of my services, you know, like um, you know, I said I jumped my microneedling from 250 to 350, but that's because like I have to, because like the pen and the
Right.
cartridge I'm using
Yeah, your
is,
expenses go up over time
yeah,
as
I mean,
well,
it's
right?
so darn expensive. So in my mind, it's, you know, it's like, okay, I know that this is worth it. I can see the results from this pen. So like I know it's worth it. So when I know it's worth it, it's easier for me to, you know, sell 350, 450, microneedling with growth factors and whatnot.
And you're mainly still getting these clients from the same organic methods you mentioned before, right? Like
Yep.
making content, getting connected in local communities and groups in your area, starting conversations with simple introductions and an invitation for the first visit. Are you still implementing like a lot of the same strategies of like the introductory offer, model calls, things like that, like for new clients?
Uh, not really anymore. You know, I've kind of finally gotten to a place. I definitely know that I can use those strategies if I'm ever like feeling like I need to fill my books, and or when I start hiring other people, because then I'm going to definitely need to be helping to build them up.
Love it. So I mean, is there anything else that you think is important to note, or things that you focused on to get to 50K per month, or that helped you get to that 400 was the actual number, 400 and
19.
$19,000 last year. Um, Anything else you really focused on or that you'd advise or recommend for anyone who's looking to hit similar or same results?
You know, I think I just got really good about, you know, just selling packages, you know.
Packages.
Yeah, you know, and I find that as long as I'm getting like some new people in throughout the week as well, you know, like I'm okay, right? So like there's some days where it's just all packages, right? But then I'll get a new person and I sell them, you know, $600, right? Or you know, microneedling. Love microneedling. All my estheticians out there, microneedling is hand down is amazing. Jordan, I think you know about microneedling as well too.
I
But
get it done regularly.
yeah, I mean, it's so amazing, and you need more, right? For optimal results. So it's just it's so much easier to like sell packages when you need more for optimal results.
I love it. I'm going to type packages in the chat. I would love for everyone who's watching right now, do you offer packages with your current business? Yes or no? Let me know down below in the chat. Just type a yes or a no. Felicia, if you had never done a package sale or a series of treatments before, what would you kind of advise or recommend for like prescribing your first package or plan if you were to restart today?
Uh, Sorry, what are you asking?
If
Like
you were
how?
to like start from scratch with selling your first package, you've never done it before, what would you
Okay.
advise or recommend?
Well, if I was seeing somebody coming in, consultation, taking a look at their skin, depending on their needs, I'm either going to like package a bundle of facials with products um, for optimal results. Or I'm going to package some microneedling, you know, a series of 3 um, with products as well.
And when you do this, like, how does the appointment or consultation usually go? Is it like, do you have a specific strategy, script, or approach that you're using? Like, let's say
Yeah.
I'm your client coming in and I'm a great fit for microneedling. Like, how do you walk through the appointment with me and make that offer?
Yeah, so, you know, I do have like a whole little script of questions, you know, it's really nice because it's very professional and very thorough. So we're just going to go through like your goals, everything that you're using, and I'm going to take a look at your skin, see like what it needs. A lot of times, you know, we need to get what you're using at home, proper at home care. If there's like a lot of congestion in the skin, we're going to need to do some facials. If there's acne, we're going to need to do some facials before we get to the microneedling. You know, so microneedling is great for, you know, scarring and just, you know, like the overall health of your skin. It's just great for skin tightening and all of that. So I definitely want everybody to do microneedling, but a lot of times we can't get there just yet because there's a lot of congestion in the skin. So Jordan, if you got some congestion in the skin, we got to clean you out first. You know, make sure you're like cleansing properly and using, you know, the proper products at home, and then move into either some stronger chemical peels, depending on your goals. If it's scarring, microneedling hands down is the best thing.
Love it. So we talk about this a lot, like kind of taking that doctor frame in the appointment where it's like, let's figure out like what your challenges are, what your struggles are, where the problem areas are, if there's particular areas that need more focus than others. And then you're basically customizing and mapping out a plan on what you advise and recommend as the expert on where we should start, and also long-term where we should kind of focus on from there, right?
Yeah.
And when you make an offer, for one, what's the most expensive package you've ever sold?
So when it comes to skincare and microneedling,
Just
like
yeah, let's start there.
$1,600.
6,000?
1,600 for like a
1,600.
yeah.
1,600. And then what about like across the board most expensive package you have to offer?
Let's see. I've probably sold, and this is with laser hair removal, like 5,500 in one.
That's awesome. So there's the almost 6,000, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So walk me through maybe, so let's say you're making this offer to me for one of these plans. Let's say like a $1,000 plus package or plan. Like how do you kind of prescribe that to me and kind of make the offer?
Okay. So, you know, we have a couple of choices with microneedling. You know, I think that we usually recommend starting out with a series of 3 microneedling. And we have a couple of tiers for microneedling. We have one with just the regular hyaluronic acid, and then we have one with the growth factors, the added serum, which boosts your microneedling and cuts your healing time down. I always recommend the growth factors just because it really does help with the healing and whatnot. And a lot of times I'll go into more depth of what, you know, that entails. And a lot of times people will choose that. And let me tell you what, I used to be kind of scared to sell a $450 added, you know, like go to $350 to $450. But I just found that if I just add it, like people can say no, you know.
Yeah.
But more times than not, like people do want that added serum. So that we're looking at about $1,200 for 3. You save $150 on a package of 3. So you could either do a single treatment for $350 or $450, or save $150 on a package, which would be $900 or $1,200 with the added serum.
So I like how often you're communicating like optimal results. This is what I recommend, right? This is what we recommend if you want to get the real result that you came in for, and communicating that. Obviously, like I think for any of our services here, for anyone who's watching, nothing's going to get solved in a one and done visit. Hair, skin, nails, whatever. Like there's going to need to be repetition. Also, you mentioned product, like there's a holistic solution that is not just in the short term, but the long term to get the optimal results. And you're basically saying that you'll kind of provide some options of a couple things that they could potentially choose. giving them an incentive, obviously, for something that is either more expensive or a longer term plan or a bundle of treatment series, whatnot. But giving them options from there and then helping guide them to whatever they select based on where they're maybe at financially and what makes the most sense for them. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I love it. So, and nothing complicated there either. Like you, I mean, how did you come up with this? How did you start doing it? Do you have scripting for this, or is it just something that you kind of naturally just prescribe what you feel is right for the client?
Yeah, I honestly, it's actually kind of fun to be able to look at someone's skin and be able to recommend what I ultimately feel is best. And like doing this for a while, it's kind of fun. It's like I get to look at someone's skin. I know, like, and I get to kind of problem solve, right?
Yeah,
And it's like, and when I actually get to do that prescribing role, it's so much funner, right? And when people actually take your suggestions, even better, not everybody does it, but it's like I know that if they use these products and do, these services in this order and stay consistent, we're going to get the results that they want.
I
It's
love
it's
it.
hard it's hard when they don't want to, buy the products, right? Or they just want to do this, there's going to be that, right?
I love it. Well, I think this is super valuable. Felicia, I have a ton of notes on all this. If you guys got value from what Felicia just shared, we've got a couple more things we'll cover. If you got some time, we can do some Q&A. Felicia, is that cool with you?
Hmm.
Everyone type hashtag Felicia down below in the chat if you want to get access to the replay from today. And then I'll also work with Felicia and Katie to put together maybe a little cheat sheet and an invitation to a potential like behind the scenes class or something that Katie and I and Felicia can put together to maybe dive deeper into exactly how Felicia's been able to accomplish a lot of these things to hopefully help a lot of you guys here, which we have a variety of people here, some estheticians. If you're an esthetician, type esthetician down below. We want to make sure we can get you guys access to this stuff. But also, if you haven't, dropped down below what services you offer. The same kind of fundamentals that Felicia is sharing with you now, like can be utilized for any type of service. And I think it's really important that like in our community, like we, even just the past few weeks, we've talked to waxing specialists, permanent makeup artists, salon owners, hairstylists, people who focus on braiding, natural hair care. Like I'm hearing for the people who I've found are the most successful, people like Felicia, who are crushing it, like blowing the cap off of what most people think is possible for solos and team and staffs of any type of service. They're following the same fundamentals, which is like getting a plan. Like you mentioned, Felicia, step one is like getting clients or getting butts and seats consistently is step one. And then two is making your clients worth more through consultations, packaging, optimizing for reviews, referrals, retention, things like that. And then just continuing to be consistent around those things, track your numbers and like continue to, max yourself out and then figure out what's the next level and then what's the next level and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I think that's amazing. The final question I have for you before we go to Q&A, which by the way, if you guys have any questions for Felicia on how she went from 0 to 10 to 25 to 50,000 was her best month last year. You did 419K last year. If y'all have questions for Felicia or how you could potentially get similar or same results, drop those in the chat now. We'll cover those. But Felicia, just cliff notes on this because you mentioned it. We can dive deeper into this maybe on our second conversation after this. You mentioned do you still currently have a virtual assistant? You mentioned that you got one right at like the 25K mark.
Yeah, I don't have her anymore, but it was actually really helpful to just help with the social media content. And like, honestly, she was way better at it than I ever was. In fact, I really slacked because I got out of practice of it because I had her doing it. And she was helping me like talking to clients. And it was also just like a really good driving force because she was like, hey, what specials do you want to run? So it was forcing me to kind of be more on top of that.
That's awesome. So getting what I'm hearing is like you were the one who kind of led the charge, the daily disciplines, the actions first. And then once you kind of got to a place where you were booked and busy, clients and cash flow coming in, then getting the support of an assistant to kind of just basically do the same things you were doing. But since they're just focused on that, you said it went a little bit even better than what you were doing initially as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I love it. Well, this is like a play-by-play for anyone who's watching. Like, we just walk through exactly what Felicia did from 0 to 10, 10 to 25, and 25 to 50. And do you think we missed anything, Felicia? Was there anything else magical that you did over there to, I mean, hit such big numbers, just you?
No.
I love
No.
it.
But it feels good when you tell me like how amazing it is, because I'm over here and yes, I'm looking at the numbers, but I don't really think about it so much. You're like, oh, was I profiting like 30K a month? And like, I don't really see it like that. So
Yeah.
it's nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think you get so focused on your own challenges, your own problems, and like your own goals and like wanting to achieve them, that sometimes like it helps to have a outside perspective of like realizing like, man, look how far I actually have come, and like, look how much impact I have created. And like, one thing's important to note, Felicia, like the average earnings for solo estheticians and the salon spa industry as a whole is 30,000 a year. And you're doing that in 1 month. So give yourself
Wow.
a little pat on the back for that, because that's pretty awesome. And I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper with some questions that we have, and then we can kind of close out with any final notes that you want to share for anyone who may be watching. So, by the way, give Felicia a ton of hearts and show some love here for taking the time out of her busy schedule to share this with you guys today. We really do appreciate it, Felicia. And let's answer some questions real quick. So first question I have is, how much did you make before adding microneedling and laser? Was that something you always offered, or did you add any services at any particular time?
No, it was something that as soon as I went off on my own, those were things I was offering right away.
Love it. So you just started out offering those right off the bat, and you've been consistently offering those same services.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not right in the beginning. It probably took a few months before I was offering probably microneedling and laser. So that's a great question, because I was about 3K, and those things probably did start to kind of grow as well, along with, the posting on the social media and whatnot.
Love it. Next question I have is, did you take a loan out at any point for your business?
No loan, just what I saved up.
So your personal finance and bootstrap this all yourself. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. I hate owing anybody money.
I think it's a good philosophy. Same. This is kind of a multi-pronged question. What school did you go to for your master esthetician license and certification?
So I went to Aveda for my original aesthetic license, and then I went to Evergreen Beauty College in Renton for my master's.
That's awesome. And then you said that was like, how long ago was that? That was back in 2015. No, you went back to get your
I got my
master's.
license, and then I think I got my master's in probably like 2017, 2018.
Love it.
Somewhere.
That's awesome. And then third part of this question is, do you have a brick and mortar? And
Yes.
I think we just covered that. You started out renting your small space, and then you moved into a bigger space.
Yes.
Love it. All right. I'm looking at what other questions we have. What do you do when you strongly feel like you don't have the right following on your social media? I've reached out to people who are following me or engaging with me, but I'm not succeeding in the same way that you mentioned. What would you recommend to, I guess, attract and build the right following on social media?
Utilizing Facebook groups, I would check for like maybe even more like quality type Facebook groups. Like, where would you find like professionals at? maybe people who have a little bit more money as well.
So make sure
Yeah.
you're intentional about like attracting the right following from like, maybe who am I looking to attract? Where are they hanging out? Or where could I kind of build relationships with them and start
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
intentional about?
Yeah. Get connected in those Facebook groups. Let's get connected post, right? See who comments and try to build that way to get them on your personal profile.
Love it. Trudy asks, is there still a risk with posting business content on your personal page, or has Facebook changed that? So I guess just a question relating like posting about your business on your personal profile.
I have never had any issues with that.
No issues.
Never.
What would you recommend to someone? God, could we get a lot of questions about that? Because you mentioned like the main asset for you, it sounds like the 80/20 like was really your personal profile, correct? So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
did you like, what would you, I guess, advise or recommend to anyone who may be hesitant to start talking about their business, sharing about what they're doing, transformations, content, stuff like that related to their business on their personal profile?
I mean, I think just have to kind of get past that, that mind frame of, like, hey, like people are going to support you, you know, a lot of times, like, running a business is not easy, right? And the people that want to support you are the ones that are going to comment you and look at you and be like, yes, look at this girl go. Like, just
Mm,
push through utilizing your personal profile. I know it's been a huge conflict for a lot of people, but I didn't really care too much about it from the get-go when Jordan Caney was telling me to use my personal profile. Once I started seeing it works, like it is kind of weird. I got a, a shit ton of friends that I don't even know on my Facebook, but like I look at it as like a business uh, point of view, right? Um, and so I just kind of keep reminding myself, it's like a business point of view, like, yeah, I still utilize it for my personal life as well.
yeah. I think there's one big phrase that we've been chatting a lot about in the community, which is make business personal again. If you want to remember it by that, like the most important thing is like people do business with people, right, Felicia? Like you don't do business with a logo, a website, like, this whatever, like your business entity. They do business with you, right? And so the more personal you can make your business, I mean, look at all the biggest names that we all know and love, like with big personal brands, big followings, like people we probably all watch on either YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Like it's usually the person we connect with rather than the business, right? And so like I think just striving to really like make business personal, and realizing that people do business with people, I think is a huge point there. And for you, it's been the foundation to get to exceeding what some people would only dream of, which is awesome. So, Felicia, I really appreciate you taking so much time out of your day. I know we went way over than expected, but I think this was super
Yes.
valuable. Like I wanted to dive as deep as possible and like take as much gold nuggets as I could. Um, Final note for today. I want you, going back to what we mentioned before we started this interview today, imagine you 5 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, is watching this video now, and looking to exceed to a certain level of success in either business or personal life, maybe looking to achieve their time and financial freedom goals. What would you advise or recommend in terms of like words of encouragement, motivation, or inspiration speaking to your past self?
Jordan, what's that saying? Like you gotta invest some money to make more money, right? I was always so scared to like invest in myself and in my business. But you know, uh as I've learned, over the years, it was the best thing that I could have done for myself. Uh, keep putting, one foot in front of the next. We're going to figure it out as it comes our way, which is pretty much what we've done in our entire business journey. And so that still carries me to this day. It's like, I don't know the first thing about hiring, and I'm just going to put the next foot in front of the next. I'm going to push through that fear. Right. And just figure out as I go, but yeah, I think that, keep going.
I love it. Let's type that in the chat. Just keep going.
Just
I
keep
think
going.
as long as you never give up, it's impossible to fail, and you can only succeed as long as you keep putting that one foot in front of the other, right? And I know
Yep.
for you, long term, like you're looking to hit, goals now. Like I know we mentioned you're trying to hit 500,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been my
And
goal for a long time.
yeah, so I mean, and you're on track to do that. I mean, you were pretty damn close to it this past year. So, any final notes that you maybe share to anyone who may be watching, maybe is looking for a little boost in their business or personal life right now?
Yeah, I'm here if anybody has any questions, like, feel free to check out my personal profile and see what I've done. I haven't posted anything any recently, more just personal life, but if you scroll through, you're going to see a lot of me posting about my business. If you have any questions about model calls or anything like that, like I can, also help with figuring out how much
I
to
love it.
price for
Well,
those.
perfect. Well, if you guys type hashtag Felicia down below in the chat, we'll make sure you guys get the replay from today. We'll try to put together a cheat sheet here as soon as possible, kind of on the hot bullet points that Felicia just mentioned. And Felicia, if it's cool with you, we can talk here soon about maybe putting together a little behind the scenes class or workshop or whatnot together to help more people. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I'm super excited to see what's on the horizon for you. I feel like this is only the beginning. You still got, I mean, plenty of time, love, and energy to give. And I'm excited to see what's in store for you next. So Felicia, thanks so much for being here. We'll be in touch soon, and looking forward to connecting with everyone else in the comments here. So thank you, Felicia. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.
We'll talk soon.